we see that if I look at ifconfig, that we're not running a tunnel. We can start this is a directory. We can use the start VPN command. And it says initialization sequence completed. That's a sign that there is now a tunnel between the AWS machine server and the client. If I look at ifconfig, I do have a tunnel 0, which has an address of 10.8.1.6, and the server is 10.8.1.1. So now I'm in the client, and let me open up 2 windows to receive remote graphics. AIC, and I'll go into a different window and start AIC -N2. So that's container number 2. That will connect to container number 2. Okay, now I can go to any window and run a remote shell. So the remote shell is to 10.8.1.1, and it has a user AIC demo. If I try it, the password is start. We look at the window. All right, it came up now, and we see now that we have the buttons on the bottom, so we can okay. So now we can try to start up container 2. So we hit C, tab. Now it changes us to container 2, and we can start container 2. Okay, we can look PS. I could do P and then tab. There's actually 2 things that start with P. So I can do PS. And we see that the applications are starting up. We see that we're running a second container. And you can check the time on this one and the time on this one. Right, they're both basically synchronized. The stopwatches are synchronized. They were started at the same time. I cloned the containers, so that's why the stopwatches are synchronized. But we have a different launcher here. Here we have the standard Google launcher, and here we have the Smart launcher. Different wallpapers, different, but fairly similar applications running on both. I can look at standard Google applications. I can look at pictures. That's basically the functionality that's enabled. We can in a secure manner open more than one container and only do protected commands, restricted shell commands within each container. And there's no way of, or it should be, a security review is required to see if there's any way to break this security. But fairly naive security idea, but it seems to work pretty well. Okay, now we can power off. And that was container 2, so I'll go to container 1, power off. And I won't do it, but I can do AWS reboot instance, which would reboot the whole instance. I can hit, probably the best thing is just hit Control D, which will leave the shell. Okay, so we logged in and we see that we don't get to a shell, but we get to a special command. We do help. This is a command that a sender provides. It allows you to do things in containers. So you can start a container. You could reinitialize the container data in case you want to go back to a well-known working system. Program status is PS on the container. Power off will close down the container. Container 1 and container 2 toggle between two containers. List shows the containers that are running. This is a longer command. AWS reboot instance will reboot the AWS server. It reboots it, and since it has a static IP, you should be able to connect to it. Help is the command we just saw. So what we can do is we can try simple things. We have, before every command, it says the default container. You can change it from 1 to 2 to administer 2 different containers with one command interface. Container 0 off and container 0 off. That means the two containers that we have are off. Let's try doing init. Initialize the container to a well-known, to its initial configuration. Normally when you go in and you load applications and things, it is persistent. This would delete all applications that have been loaded and then brings it to the initial configuration. Then you can do start. After start, you see container 1 is on. Container 0 means there's no container. We can do PS. PS shows us the processes that are running, and we see that the container is beginning to run. There's a bug that sometimes crashes containers in the beginning. The best way to go around it is to wait till the wallpaper comes up, then click on the clock. Okay. We went into the clock and we go into stopwatch, and that, if we run it for about a minute or so, that'll make the system mellow, and then we can go and run dozens of applications without a problem. Okay. So let's see what we can do. We can stop the clock. Here we have the original Google launcher, so we can actually change it. Go to home, change it to the smart launcher, and then press the home button. We should get to a different launcher. It says new smart launcher available. Just go back. Don't install it. I don't know if it installs. And then we can work with a different launcher, which might be interesting. Okay, what we're doing now is we're running applications from AWS Dublin, and you can see that the applications are very smooth. Of course, from your German base, it'll have a lower latency, should be even smoother than this, but it'll be probably over 1,000 kilometers, so it'll have a 20-25 millisecond delay, which is enough to see, but it really is, you really can't tell the difference between far away 4,000 kilometer system to a local system. Okay, so let's take the system down. you have to be, there are a few things to notice. The first thing to do is we can just do, let's say, list. Shows us we have two containers. Container 1 is running. Container 2 has been stopped. Okay, the command that we want to do now is power off, PO, and then you could hit tab. So it has auto completion. So which is, you don't have to type long commands. You just do PO and then let's say, or we can try just doing P. And I hit, every time I hit the tab, it shows me the completions. P actually is in the command. So if I do P, I can do PS, and then I can do P, and then hit tab twice, I can do power off. Once I do power off, we see that both containers are off, and we've stopped. Alright, what you have to do is, if you start up a container now, it won't be able to render to it. You have to go back to the local directory, run. You see the previous AIC command was killed. We run AIC locally, which opens up the local viewer. You can go back and then start the container again. So you see container 1 is on, PS, it's beginning to run. Right here we've already changed the router so we can wait till the wallpaper becomes the more colorful one. That should happen. Alright, it's still coming up. Okay, and then we can click on the clock and we get back to the stopwatch, which is still running. Okay, so this is the way we can run a container. The important thing to notice is we do it all without super user privileges. Right, we log into a user account called AIC demo. It then goes to a restricted shell, a specific shell that we wrote, and then we can run the commands that require super user status. Okay, so if we want to stop this, power off on it, we can just do P, tab, power off. It closes down. Okay, and then you can just do a Control C or a Control D, and it exits the remote connection. Okay, so the only thing running now is the VPN network, which continues to run, and you can just leave it. If it doesn't run, you won't be able to access the remote graphics. Okay, let's try to do the same thing we did previously with two containers running simultaneously. So we will run AIC once. So this is for image 1. Second time we'll do it for image 2. So these are the first container and the second container. And we see two windows. The only other window of interest is the one running the Open VPN, which is still running. Now we'll go to the window and open up the shell, the AIC shell, AIC demo 1, 2, 3, 3 lines. Okay, so what we want to do now is we'll do init to reinitialize the window, and then we'll do start. We could run PS to see how it's progressing. System server is started, 1 second, 4 seconds, and now we see applications are beginning. Android is starting. I'll position myself over the clock. Once the new wallpaper comes in, we can click on the clock and hopefully get to a stable situation. Okay, so that one is stabilized. Now we'll try to do it on the second container. So we do container, tab, and tab again. We'll do init just to make sure we know what we're coming, and we'll do start. Okay, so now it's starting the second container. System server has come up, and let's just wait. Here we click on the clock in the middle. It takes a while until it actually begins to run applications. Okay, so here we have a stopwatch, and they're both running. So we see we have two windows running, and they're running slightly versions of Android. The one on the left is connected to the Play Store. The one on the right is disconnected to the Play Store. So we see that the one on the left has updates to even standard applications, come in standard applications from Google. Let's just look at some graphical programs. We can run this blending example. Go to container number 1, run the same application. So this is running, they're actually synchronized because of the clock, but they can run separate things. So if we go into the application and go into the cube example, we see we have 3 cubes and it's running smoothly. We could go into the another application, we see it's running smoothly. Right, we can do run Spotify in one and run something else in the other one. Okay. We can go back to the launcher windows. I can change the launcher here to be the smart launcher. I could change this launcher here. Go into home, go smart launcher. Then I hit the home button and it'll give us, notice it's a different version of the smart launcher. One is more up to date than the other one. Okay, so now I'm connected to container 2, which is this window. And if I do power off, that window disappears, and I have to go to container 1, and I do power off. Okay, so it has a command interface. One thing I haven't mentioned, you can use arrows to go back and forth in the history. So it has command completion tab, arrows, and it allows you to start and stop containers, interact with containers without root privileges. Okay, thank you.